Kilted balls. That was good. I think we were right in sync that time. I paused after I pointed at you. So you figured it out. That was great. Welcome back, everybody, to the Kilted Balls podcast. Hope things are going great in your life. Hope things are doing wonderful. And you have a pigeon on your shirt. What's up with the pigeon?
I do. This is a staple pigeon. Did I tell this story? Anyone who saw, I did a short on it. Oh. So I was wearing this shirt one morning. After I dropped the boys off at school, I stopped at Publix. Mm-hmm. Cheryl's Ford, North Carolina, which think of like any small town anywhere, but they happen to have a Publix. Is like the best thing they have. Although they're getting a cookout, which is pretty amazing. Anyways, I was wearing this shirt in there, and I was just, it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and a guy comes up to me. He goes, "Is that a Jeff Staples shirt?" And I was like, "Heck yeah!" And he was just like, he was so excited. Like it brightened my day too, because it's fun when people recognize. I like to say stuff to people's shirts because but it just like made his day. He was a bit older than me, and he definitely had a New York accent. So maybe he's like, he's like an OG, like knows about staple pigeon, blah blah blah, all this stuff. But he was like so excited, and he just wandered off, and I saw him just like grinning ear to ear. So, it was pretty funny.
I bet he told a few people about his staple pigeon.
Mm-hmm.
I would bet.
And the only reason I know is from Gary V. That Staple did a collab with V Friends. That was like the first one with a perspective pigeon, and I liked that design. I ended up picking up some of their other stuff. So yeah,
nice. That's amazing. So you've got this. I've noticed a lot of things. So I noticed the sweatshirt, but I also noticed that your background is completely different than the last time we talked.
Yeah, isn't this awesome?
Yeah, what is going on? Like, I'm so confused. What happened to your old setup? Why the new setup? This is amazing.
So I've been thinking about moving my stuff around. Okay. And in the office, there are, is my desk and Gina's desk and our fish tanks. But there's other things that Gina wants to be working on and stuff that we've had for a while, haven't gotten out, and just like tools that she will need to do her stuff. So I moved a bunch of sheets around. I've been moving them around for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And I took down one of the shelves, which the shelves are like, 8 feet by 4 feet? So it's a big shelf. Mm-hmm. And I was debating on it. First I moved my plants inside because they weren't doing well outside, and my basil's doing awesome. I have some onions growing. But anyways, I had that here, and I was like, you know what if I put my desk at that spot? So I moved the plants over, and I made my own little office right here. You can see I do my orders right here. Nice. So I can print in my printer right here. I can do my orders right here. I can stack them. I can take them out to the car when I'm done. But then also I moved over. This is my favorite shelf. It has some of my awesome toys on it. And I do have more of my other shelf. I moved another shelf in right here too. So yeah, it's just like the energy right here is really great, although it's freezing back here. So we'll figure that out. I'll talk to you later.
So are you in a different room? Like you're not part of the actual house part of the warehouse?
I am almost in the direct middle of the warehouse.
Oh, wow. You can't tell you're in the middle of a warehouse right now.
Yeah. So behind me is the workout room. Mm-hmm. And I put up this sheet just because there's a bunch of boxes over there. Yeah. I think I don't leave the sheet up, of course, when I'm not recording, but right. Yeah, I like it. I got my Freddy back there. Michael Myers is hiding right next to him. So yeah, it's fun. I have like my setup is here, and because I was debating on switching back to my stand-up desk because when I moved here, I had just gotten my new chair.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna sit down. I have this awesome chair, but I miss standing up. I miss working standing up. So I have my chair here as well. Like I can lower it and sit and do things. But yeah, I'm happy to be standing. So yeah, thank you for noticing.
Awesome. Heck yeah, I think it's super cool, super jealous. And you know what? If Bitcoin sits here around the 90s and you're cold, might be time to click them back on. Might be time to click all those on.
Yep, so. I figured we'd talk later about that because I know we've been talking about it a little bit, but it was before it went way, way up. So
yeah, like it's got to be worthwhile now, and
I think so.
I mean, you might have to turn it off when we record; those are pretty loud. So
oh yeah, we'll have to figure that out. Maybe I just have to build a lid on this thing.
Well, I'm still thinking. I still think that probably the best solution is to build sound insulation around the miners.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be...
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, and I think I could do them easily, especially with like a cooler. And, I think liquid would be best, but I think we could insulate them. And then you're not getting quite as much of that droning sound. You're still going to get sound. Mm-hmm. But you won't get as much, and it'll be directional. So you could like point it one way or the other, and, then it wouldn't be as big of a noise suck thing, I think. Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
It'd be worth trying. Maybe I'll make one up next time I visit, and you can try it out.
Okay, come next week before we record.
All right, guess I'm taking a trip.
Before you start getting busy.
I think I'm already busy, right? I was telling somebody earlier, I was like, yeah, it's kind of busy, and I'm like I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, not wanting to do stuff because I'm like, but then I do stuff and get everything done really, really quickly because I'm efficient. But there's a lot of stuff going on right now, and so I'm just trying to get through it. This weekend I chaperoned a trip to Indy, which was fantastic.
Awesome. How did it go?
A lot of food. So
that's awesome.
Like everything was prepaid, and for me, like going and chaperoning, everything for me was covered as well, based on the fees. Nice. I assume that everybody paid, but like they were trying to make sure that it was an experience and that it was good food for people.
Okay.
And like it seriously felt like I was eating all the time. Like on Saturday,
did you guys do like Old Spaghetti Factory or like that Mexican restaurant that's right there by Lucas Oil?
No. So both times, well, not both times, but so like the first day we get there and, we leave here like 5, 6 a.m., go down there. When they kind of get there, the kiddos, I had gotten everybody Jimmy John's. So we ate Jimmy John's. Then we hung out for a bit. It was a band competition, so watching bands. And then we went to Condado Taco, which is amazing, and they do a great job for us. And so I think people were just starting to get hungry. So that was cool. And we eat, and it was good. So we had performed, and then we went there and ate. And that was good. And then we kind of went home, and it was late, right? And so you're at the hotel, and we had extra food for them, like we had extra chips and stuff. So the kids were still eating. Next morning, you get up and it's a hotel, but they have a good breakfast there, a good hot breakfast. Mm-hmm. So we all eat breakfast. And this is like...
Where did you guys stay?
I can't remember which one. Nope.
Okay.
But it's by the airport. So there's like a whole complex by the airport, right?
Yep.
So stayed at one of those same spot I had stayed in the past. But so you eat all that, and it was good hotel food. Like it wasn't like, it's normal hotel food, but it's not. But it was decent.
It's a nicer hotel.
It's a nicer hotel. So we get done with that, and that's like at 9 or 10, right? And so at 12, I pick up Chick-fil-A for everybody. So then we eat a whole ton of Chick-fil-A, which is cool. So now it's like 1 or 2. Watch a few more bands, and then at 5, we go to the Weber Grill, which is right down in Indy. And yes, it's like that Weber. And like they start us off with appetizers, and then it's a 4-course meal. And you're like, I literally just ate Chick-fil-A like 3 or 4 hours ago. And like before that, it was only like 2 hours since breakfast. And now I'm eating this huge, like, great meal, good meal, but another huge meal. and you're just like, man.
Well, you do look a little smaller. I think you're pushed further away from the camera.
Trying to give it
your belly.
I'm trying to get my belly away, so I'm way far out. So yeah,
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, the bands were all good to watch. The kiddos were great. They had a wonderful experience. I definitely think they thought I was the best chaperone ever. So.
For sure.
But the food is what I'll probably remember, because it was just like always eating and always good. Because as you know, I like Jimmy John's. Jimmy John's is one of my favorites. So getting Jimmy John's, I was happy. Chick-fil-A I love, so I like Chick-fil-A. So it was a good time.
Yeah.
So
that is great.
Yeah. And got to watch some amazing marching bands, which was awesome. Yeah. And I like Lucas Oil Stadium. It's one of my favorite stadiums. So yeah,
so
good times.
All around a good experience. That's super awesome. All around
a good experience. It was a good time. So yeah, I missed playing with you guys, but I had a good time. I was so tired. Like, I still was up late because, like, I'm a chaperone, but like that was like, I was like exhausted. I'm like, man, I don't know if I've ever been this, like, it's been a long time. But for some reason, getting up at 4 a.m. and then staying up until like midnight was like, I'm like, man.
Yeah, because you didn't go to bed super early the night before either.
I did not go to bed super early, yeah. So
one of those to try to like offset it.
Yeah. And then you're peopling the whole time because you're chaperoning. And I'm like, so by the end, I was like, like, I think it was like 9 o'clock. And I'm like, I've got to check kids in at 10. I'm like, I'm just going to sleep here for like a half hour.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it was good. It was good. But yeah, great weekend. That was fun. And now, still in the busy season, and and I have a banquet tomorrow, and then meetings tomorrow, and meetings all day Thursday. It's just like boom, boom, boom. So just trying to kind of be like, right now I'm easy going through it, but I've been doing this long enough that I'm like, okay, I got to be careful. Like, this can get overwhelming fast if you're not like staying on top of it. So
I imagine so.
Yep. Just trying to not. Which, it's funny because someone brought up today, they saw our old yearbook, right? And so they were commenting on how many activities I was involved in. And I was like, like, now as an adult, I understand I have to always be busy, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really think back then either my mom knew it, or like, I just assumed that was the way the world should be, that you should always be busy. But I'm like I didn't know that. But I remember in college, my mom was like, you need to always be busy. You can't, that's why you're struggling, is you're not super busy all the time. And I was like, no, I don't want to be busy. I want to relax. And she's like, that's not you. And I was like,
you can't do that.
Well, now I'm like, okay, how much of high school, like, I've often thought, like, man, my parents let me do so much stuff. I was so lucky they let me do so much stuff. And now I'm like, wait, were they tricking me into doing so much stuff? Like, they never said no. But like during track season, I was still wrestling full time during track season. Like, kiddos today were like, how did you wrestle? We thought you did track. And I'm like, well, I would have track meets on like Thursday, and then I would wrestle Friday nights, and then we'd have track meets on Saturday. Like, it worked out fine. And they're like, when did you practice? And I'm like, after track practice, I practiced. Like, I don't know what you mean. So, like, I'm like, I just did stuff.
But I got home at like 8 p.m.
Easily, like, if I was getting home at 8, I still remember once, there was like a stretch, I think our senior year and our junior year, where like most nights I never got home before 9. And that was just like my normal. And I never even thought it was weird. I just thought that's how people were.
Yeah.
Right? And like, now I'm like, oh, kids don't do that. So
that's hilarious.
So was my mom letting me, or were they tricking me into doing everything? Like, just,
they knew.
Like, knowing that I would want to do everything, so as long as they exposed me, I would just keep saying yes, yes, yes. And
yeah, that's
probably true.
They wanted you to be successful.
Something. They wanted me to not be going crazy. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking about going crazy, we had a parent-teacher conference for the little guy, and they were talking about how much energy they have. Did I tell you guys this last week? Oh my gosh, it was so funny. Like they've talked before about how much energy Cal has, and my wife one time made a comment. They were like, Cal was having a lot of energy today, and she's like, "Yep, he does." And he's a boy, and he's got some crazy energy. And the teacher like wrote back and was like, "Well, it's abnormal or something like that. Like he's not like where he should be." And like my wife was like, "Listen, lady, with like a baby." This is number 4. We know what the F we're doing. We know what's normal and not. And trust me, he's definitely within the range of like where he should be as a 7-year-old boy. Because she was like, well, 7-year-old boys have trouble sitting still. And they were like, well, he's moving way more than the other boys. And I'm like, well, then the other boys are drugged. Because at 7 years old, you should be like...
Well, they start ADDing them that early.
Oh my gosh, right? Well, so we're having a parent-teacher conference, and like my wife is laughing about it because, again, I have a lot of energy as well, and so it's constant like stuff, and so she's like, "Listen, it's genetic, like all that energy, and the girls had the energy too, but for the boy, it's like crazy because they're like wrecking balls." And the teacher's like, well, and my wife's like, yeah. And like, she was like, if you ever come up with, like, she's being rhetorical. Like, if you come up with some way of trying to use up that energy, we'd love to hear it. And she's like, well, actually, have you ever heard about, like, heavy training or something like that? And my wife's like, actually, like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, some people have a lot of success, like, if you give them like chores to do that are really like physical heavy chores, like, moving big things or doing this or that or being outside. And I just start like laughing. I'm like guffawing in the back. I'm like, bah! And the teacher's like, is Brian back there laughing at me? And my wife's like, yes, he is. And she's like, why? And she's like, do you know the 7-year-old has his own axe and we have him out splitting wood? She goes, he comes from a farm background where they were always expected to do heavy training. She's like, like that's not some like cliche term. That's just our life. And she goes,
and he goes to the weight room and he wrestles.
She's like, he's at wrestling practice every day with the high schoolers. I'm pretty sure, but again, I think new teachers and bless them and new parents, you're a new parent, right? Like they don't understand. Like once you've gone through a couple of them through 20, you start to be like
learning a lot.
Yeah, you learn a lot by the time. So like with number 4, we're like, let me tell you what's going on. When my oldest was in 2nd grade, they had her running laps before class. Like, you're taking him in and saying, sit here and be quiet while we read. He can't sit and be quiet ever. Like, neither can his dad. Like, like you want him to calm down? Make him do push-ups for a while. Make him run around for a while. And then he got a think sheet, which is like a referral recently. And I was, you're supposed to sign it and send it back. And I don't think they sent it back because I wrote a message on it. Because what he got in trouble for was one of his friends was talking to like the student of the week, and they were going to have like a celebration. And they were like, hey, what's your favorite kind of cake, to the student of the week? And my little guy answered right away, poop cake. Like answered for him. And so he got written up for saying poop is a cake. Or that there's a poop cake thing. And that's like what the thing she said. Like he said that, there was such a thing as poop cake. Like it literally said that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
You could have written him up for being silly. You could, for bursting out talking, for being loud. But you're mad at him because he said there's a thing called a poop cake. listeners, you should Google poop cake.
Oh, that's awesome. I was wondering if this is where that was going.
That's where that's going. Like, my favorite is the cupcakes. Are you Googling it right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, Google poop cake. Google poop cake, listeners. It's a thing. Now, I don't know if he knew it was a thing, but again, that's why he gets in trouble for being loud or being silly.
Actually, if you put in poop CA, cake pops up.
Oh yeah, for sure. Click it. It's like a normal.
Oh yeah, the poop emoji cake.
The poop emoji cakes, right?
Poop cake. Yeah.
Poop cakes are a thing. I'm like, lady, you did not think this through. Just Google it. And so, like, on the paper, I was like,
awesome.
You should Google poop cake. It is a thing.
Like, if it was anything else, you'd have been fine with it. Like, yes, it was, like you said, it was an outburst. It was this. And this, it's funny because stuff like that comes up with Morgan, like talking to his teachers. And they're like he does stuff. And they're just like, but he's, like, when he's not just being his normal self, like he is like super kind and super cooperative and super quiet, but he has these times where he's not quiet or calm or just whatever. And she's like, but he's like, he's a great kid.
Yes.
So it's really hard when he's doing these other things. And I imagine it's the same thing for Cal. Like, you know, you just okay.
I'm like, I want him to be silly. I want him to be loud. Like, it's like when they talk about the energy. They used to say that with my oldest. They used to say, listen, she's got a lot of energy and we're thinking we should calm her down. I'm like, oh, I think no. Like, I think energy is so powerful and I'm not going to quell that at all. Like, in fact, I wish she had more energy. Like, your job as the teacher is to utilize that energy. Find constructive ways for them to express that energy. Your job is not to bring the energy down. We want more of the energy. I want them to do all of the things. And they do, right? Like, she's grown up into a person who does all the things, and that's what I want, right? So I'm like, I'm not going to try to calm him down. I want him to be even more energetic, right? Like, that's how we roll. But, you know, it's the thing. I have a core memory I want to share because this reminded me of it. When I was in second grade, Smith Building. Smith Building was, you came after Smith Building. Were you just at the end?
No, I came in fourth. Yeah,
fourth grade. So you were there.
So I had 2 years with. Yeah.
So I was in the second grade wing of that, and I remember one day I'm home, and my parents. You know, we were a huge family, farmer background from my dad's side, and like, you know, there was no. It's not like now where parents like defend their kids to the death. It was like, your parents said you back talked. Here's the belt, right? Like, it was not like it was like, oh, you had to be good, right? But one of my core memories, I remember they were like, we're going to the school, and I'm like, okay, and they're like, your teacher's upset because you called her stupid, and I'm like, I didn't call my teacher stupid. And they're like, did you call your teacher dumb? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't do that. And they're like, you're in some big trouble because, you know, you respect adults. You don't say that to them. I'm like, and, you know, I'm 7 or 8. And I'm like, listen, I never called them stupid. I never called them dumb. And they're like, your teacher called and said you called her stupid. And I remember my dad, as we're driving there, he's like, are you calling her a liar? And I'm like, what I'm saying is if she said I said that, she's wrong, and if that makes her a liar, it is what it is. And people, if you're like, you didn't talk that way, I did. Like, that's how I existed, right? Like, I just talked the way I did. I had, you know, 7 older brothers and sisters. So I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I didn't say it. And they're like, well, we're going and talking to her. You sit in the car. And they go in, and like, they were riled up. And my dad was like, you know, when we go in and we find out you're lying, you're getting a beating, not just for being disrespectful and for calling her stupid, but for lying to us. And I'm like, I didn't do it. I didn't call her that. And so they go through this whole meeting and they come out, and I'm like terrified, right? Like, I'm like, and they get in the car, and I'm like, so did she tell you I didn't say it? And they're like, she said you didn't call her stupid or dumb. And I'm like, I told you I didn't. And I'm like, what was the deal? And they said, well, she said you treat her like she's stupid. And I'm like, 'cause she's stupid.
Like, I know better than to say it.
I go, but I didn't say it to her. And they're like, well, you shouldn't treat her that way. I'm like, but she is. Like, you treat people as who they are. And they're like, no, you don't treat her like she's stupid. I'm like, but now you know. I'm like, you just had a meeting. Now you know, right? And they're like,
yeah.
They're like, yes. They're like, we talked to her and we said, he says he didn't call you stupid. And he's like really holding to the story that he didn't call you stupid. And she's like, well, actually, he didn't call me stupid. And my dad's like, you told us he called you stupid. And she's like, well, what I meant is like, he makes me feel stupid and he does this and, you know, and he treats me like I'm not as smart as him. And my mom is like, 'cause you're not. And I'm like,
I don't know if you can drop a name. Do you remember who you had in second grade?
I can't. I was trying to remember the name because I was like, oh, it was Mrs. And then I was like, no, that was my kindergarten teacher. So I have a blank there because there was, here's the problem. Like I had Mrs. Moyle and I had Mrs. Munn, right? And then here's the problem. In second grade, there was like Mrs. Blastica and Mrs. Lutz. And I don't think
Lutz was fifth grade.
And that's what I mean. Like they're getting switched in my brain.
Yeah.
And Blasco was a family friend. Like I wouldn't have done that to her. So I'm like, I don't remember what the heck that teacher's name was that long ago. Right? And they all start blending together. So fourth grade was Mrs. Ash. Fifth grade was Mr. Mead. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm missing second and third grade.
Oh, yeah. You had Mr. Mead.
Yep. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because I had Lutz in fifth grade, and I had Mrs. Ash in fourth.
You and I were in the same fourth grade?
I don't remember that, but apparently we were.
Okay, but do you remember Tammy Kester in fourth grade?
I do. I crushed on Tammy forever.
High five!
You
Look at me!
know that already.
High five! High five! Oh my gosh, yes. Yes. I had a crush on Tammy forever. Like I remember going and hanging out at her house and stuff with like, you know, like the friend group would all like meet there. So.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I remember like one of my things, and it's something that I still say to this day because it was so funny. Because Mrs. Ash, she taught French. We learned basic French.
Sure.
But she was talking about something, and she made a comment, when you wake up, you'll wake up dead. And we all laughed because you can't wake up if you're dead.
Right.
But it was just one of those things. She turned all red and all that stuff, and it's like, I'll say that. Try to work it in. It's funny. You wake up dead.
You wake up dead. Yep. Nope. Yeah, I remember things like Ferme La Bouche. I remember stuff from Mrs. Ash. So, and Tammy Kester, right? Who I think we're still friends with, like on Facebook and stuff. So
yeah, I see her on Facebook sometimes.
Yeah. But like totally like never like once we went to college, I don't even barely remember her in high school, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody took different tracks in high school, and it was weird for as small of a school as we were. The way they tracked us caused so much separation, like instantly. Like if you didn't take physics, like you were separated out, and we like never saw you again. Right?
Yeah.
Like it was such a weird thing. I don't know how that happened. And then if you're someone like me and you're in like the AP Calc and stuff like that, you were even further separated from your peers. And so like, all of a sudden you didn't see anybody anymore.
Yeah. Well, there was that. It's funny that we're talking about this because there was the class, and I'm 99% sure you were in it. So it was, I want to say it was 8th grade. So we're in middle school. And there was a class where they put like all the smart kids in the class.
Yes.
And it was all my friends and all the people that I hung out with. But I had office duty that hour. So I was, I was in the office. So I wasn't in that class. And then there was a class with all the people who were not as smart. So like all the middle people, I don't know where they were, but there was a super smart class, and then there was this class of people not as smart, and I was in that class. And it was silly stuff like basic reading instructions, basic following directions, and it was Mrs. Dine, who I never got along
in
with.
High school.
I was in middle school.
I didn't know Mrs. Dine was in middle school.
She was. She came up to high school when we were in high school. I had her there too, and we fought. But anyway,
how could you fight with her? She was like the sweetest.
I don't. I don't know if it was something because in middle school, I might have had some extra energy and whatever. I was not necessarily, that. I don't know. I went back and apologized to all my middle school teachers. So there's that, except maybe she heard. But anyways, it was like read this pamphlet, and at the top it said read everything and then turn it in.
Oh yes, yes.
Put your name on it. And, it was stuff like that. Yes. And I was just like, I get up, I read it, I turned it in, and everyone's like looking at me, and then the hour's over and they're still filling out all these papers. So it was stuff like that, but I was shafted because literally all my friends were in there. So it was kind of
in the other class. All your friends were in the other one.
It was Mr. Bugia was the teacher.
Oh yeah.
So he did science and he did that. So I remember, I'd go in there and Rachel and Heather and you and Aaron and Jesse and just all my friends were in there.
Not you. You're out.
Not me.
I remember because didn't you stop by and we would sit there and argue about Angel and whether she was cute or not?
Yeah, I'd always be in there.
Yeah,
I'd be in there whenever I could.
Oh god, I barely remember those days. One of my core memories there was how Stan Mamp for sure, but they would always punch me in the stomach as hard as they could.
Really?
Yeah. I think Stan almost broke his wrist once. And teachers would be like, "Don't do that," and they're like, "You can't hurt him."
Yeah.
And Stan would be like, "Watch," and he'd get a running start and just crack, and then he'd be like, "Ah, I think I broke my wrist." I'm like,
that's funny.
And if people are like, "I don't understand," my core was solid. When you start wrestling as a 5th grader, by the time you hit 8th grade, there was no fat on my stomach. It was solid.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm. We're even noticing that with Oliver in his jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
He's starting to bulk up a bit because he's trying to do push-ups. He's on the balance balls. He's doing all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And, then he's got 3 days a week. He's doing these workouts. So.
And you'll see that, right? And now if you take that out 5 or 6 years, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to be way more fit than your peers.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
As a rule, right? Which then gives you confidence, and it's all a good trend. I don't know if I like kids competing at a lot of stuff, but I love kids training because I think that's helpful for a lot of things. So
yeah,
I see a lot of kiddos who don't do that, and then they're super timid and cautious, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
Your parents should have put you in a more aggressive sport.
Yeah. Yep.
When you were
I was
younger.
like that. I was like that when I was younger. A football was thrown at me. I was scared and
yes.
So I wasn't exposed to it.
Right. Well,
besides the Nerf ball. Yeah.
I got an argument once with a whole bunch of teachers. They were ripping on kiddos on their little kids teams, they were coaching little kids, and they were talking about how they couldn't catch a baseball and they were scared of the ball, and they're 7 years old and scared of a ball, and I'm like, I go, why wouldn't they be? And they're like, well, by that age you've got a lot of experience, and I'm like, not if they had a single mom, not if their dad works all the time. I'm like, that I go, you're being awfully judgy because you experienced that with your kid and you had that experience. Doesn't mean all the kiddos at your coaching, that's why you're a coach. You've got to coach them up to not be scared.
Yeah.
No way, by 8 years old they should know. And I'm like,
oh wow.
I'm like, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why they should know. That's not taught in school. They don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I don't know why they would all of a sudden know. Right?
That's extracurricular for sure.
Yes, yes. I'm like, you're awfully judgy. Awfully judgy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
right? What else? What else do you got for us?
So I mentioned last actually this is it, I've had a weird week.
Okay.
It's been really wild. So last week I
Wait,
talked
pause.
about
Time out.
oh
If your story tells us that things got resolved on your website, you can keep going.
oh yeah. So I wasn't going to bring that up, but it
Yes.
did. So Ball and I figured that out. Once we got off air, we were messing with it, and it was basically I think it's because they changed something in their pay thing, and the email that gets sent out when someone orders it, I had to click on it and click yes, I still want to keep this email, and then everything was fixed.
I just know our listeners were dying to know if your webpage was
Yes,
fixed, and
I
so
forgot all
we gotta
about
let
that.
them know
So
it was fixed.
So we were talking about that. Usually, I mean, I made the comment that my website has been a little slow. I was thinking about maybe doing some extracurricular, like working for the man.
Mm-hmm.
So, and part of me is like, why would I be thinking that? Like, it didn't really make sense in my mind because I know that there are things that I can do, but maybe it was just like, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, I know that I would still be selling everything online and blah, blah, blah. And if I'm doing this other stuff and like I was thinking some sort of sales job because that's what I know and I'm good at it. Anyways, then I was like thinking about it also, like the bull run is coming, which we've already started to experience. Our crypto friends listening, you've noticed that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have a bad month on my website affect my future because I had to take money out to pay basic living expenses.
Right.
So that was like it just clicked one day, like, okay, maybe that's why I'm doing it. And I was fine with that. I filled out all my stuff on Indeed. I did all that stuff. And a couple jobs came by that looked pretty interesting, and Gina and we've been talking about and working on some children's books and stuff, which I had mentioned a few episodes ago.
Yes.
So we're working on, and it's like we had some other like really cool ideas, but we just weren't doing. Well, I'm doing all this Indeed stuff, and we start working on this other stuff. So it's like super exciting, and I mean, I played Sea of Thieves once last week where I'm like on my computer and I'm writing and I'm working, and you've probably noticed on the book I've added stuff to the book.
Yeah.
So just doing a lot of that. And even one night, like I went to bed, it was at a normal time, like 10, 11 o'clock. And like 4 a.m., I was wide awake. I was wide awake for an hour. And then I'm just like, I'm getting up. And I came to my computer and I'm starting writing and everything. So so there's a couple different things there. But ultimately, I do have an interview tomorrow. And if I've decided if I don't get the job, I'm totally fine with that. I'll be leaning more into doing this other stuff because that's going to be a form of income as well. And I know that, and it's just putting in the time. Yeah. And I've got the website fixed. Like I had an amazing week last week where it's like caught up to like normal November number, which is super exciting as well, which also helps. Like, when the website starts off the first 2 weeks of November and it's like really bad, I'm like freaking out because it's like I see like my crypto going away, and at the end of the bull run, not happening anything,
which is happening to me for like the second time in a row.
Yeah,
like I got rid of a lot on the way out, and now I don't have it anymore.
So I'm super excited. I mean, tomorrow I'm interviewing at a local Harley dealership, which should be super fun. They're, cool bikes and things like that. So we'll see. And if not, I'm not worried about it. I'm not, I've been doing some of this other stuff that I'm really, really excited about. And just with our journals that we're doing, there's a lot of different ways you can do it and a lot of different things you can do. And Gina and I hung out earlier today for a couple hours, and it was awesome. We were brainstorming, we were writing down ideas, we were putting some stuff together, and it's been a lot of fun. So like just everything is happening right now, and
that's exciting.
Just following that excitement. following that excitement. Yeah, it's
and
super awesome.
I think that's where we need to end the episode, with that kind of excitement. I love that. And people, we're going to hear more updates about it next week. But I think that's the feeling people should have right there, which is not an all the time feeling, but learning how to recognize those, grasp them, and live in that moment is fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm super excited
when it hits,
for you.
you're just like, yeah, it's awesome.
Hell yeah, that's great. All right, people, we hope you enjoyed listening to us ramble and hearing our stories and our reminiscing. We loved hanging out with you, and this is Ballbuster signing off.
Kilted Dragon Jair, love you all.